hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
So let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and the means by which those differences can be resolved. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures. And we are all mortal.
You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Welcome to Unscripted with Daniel, your free, independent news source for Valparaiso and Indiana politics. Welcome to another episode of Unscripted with Daniel. For the audio listeners, I am wearing a Bob Ross costume while I'm talking to you throughout this entire episode, so you should definitely check out the channel where the video is available. So anyways, I want to give some context for this episode of The Guest. Jay Weinberg, who I'm interviewing, has always wanted to be an artist. Even at the age of 10, he told his mom that he wanted to go to the American Art Institute. And why did he want to do that? Because he was inspired by Bob Ross. And not just that Bob Ross was a painter, but it was the character of Bob Ross, the kindness and the gentleness, and the encouragement that even through mistakes, that you should just keep going. It's just a happy little accident. Now, there's something going on with PBS, of course. There's a cutting of funding. So, Jay has an answer for this. I'm just going to go ahead and let Jay take it from here.
And so, the Million Bob March is inviting everyone to come to Washington, D.C. on October 29th. That's Bob's birthday. And you come just like we are. Blue denim, afro wigs. If you got a real afro, you can wear that. You don't have to have a beard. You got one on.
Found one.
You found one, right? So that's October 29th. But if you can't make it, we're also calling it a day of Bobservance. So you can't make it to DC. You still go to school. You go to work. You go shopping dressed up as Bob. We're going to have a place where people can submit their selfies that day, submit videos. So it will be a national archived movement that the people said, we believe in PBS. We believe in Fred Rogers. Because I don't believe that any person who voted against, and we would have to talk about the specifics and how things are manipulated again in the political arena, that I don't think anyone could look Fred Rogers in the eye and tell him, sorry, Fred, we don't have the funds.
So the Million Bob March, it's held on October 29th. And what's so great about it? What's so great is that, it's joyful. It's funny. That makes it unique. And it's held on Bob Ross's birthday, October 29th. And, it just shows that people care about PBS. And let's go ahead and jump in and share a few more unique things that makes this Million Bob March important and probably effective.
Right.
And it's a show of force that's not forceful, but fun.
It's gentle and it's fun. That's it. And I think, so one of the things that Congressman Mervan said yesterday is he was talking about how one of the issues, he's saying, we need to get people out there. People need to speak their voice. Hey, I'm here. That's what I'm trying to get people to gather around. One of the things he said that the calls that they got the most about of anything, and it was on both sides, was TikTok. When they're talking about banning TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Now imagine this. This is a TikTok moment. That's what this is about. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm articulating this, is to be something that goes on TikTok.
Right.
The whole thing, the everybody doing it. Imagine people on Bob Talk. Because so I don't know if you know. Do you know how TikTok works with like the hashtags and stuff?
Oh, so there's a Bob Talk.
There isn't one, but there.
Oh.
There may be, but we need to get Bob Talk going.
I see.
And if Bob Talk already exists, we need Bob Talk to be hijacked, to be all about this. Right. But you imagine on October 29th, which of course we're also by Halloween. So you'll have your Halloween costume kind of already done too. Yeah. To kind of, get a double win on it.
You could pair that with Halloween too after.
Exactly. So you'll be good to go. But so, around the nation, you have people at the grocery store Bob talking. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's built for what this generation wants to do. And it's a way for them to get involved. So that's why I told Congressman Mervan when I was talking, that's what this is. This is that issue. And it's a way that people can get engaged at all levels, young, old, whatever it might be. And it's fun, like you said. It's the joy of protesting.
So the use of modern technology like TikTok, like YouTube, and Instagram, and using the hashtag of BobTalk really makes this movement viral, and that's important. And with that, it can spread, obviously, a lot faster. It's not just any protest either, it's fun. So because it's fun, it can also be funny, and also spread in that way. So there's multiple avenues, and I think that is a good thing. Now, I wanted to ask Jay about a perspective on PBS, people calling it woke and a waste of money. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to that.
I would say you wouldn't say it to Mr. Rogers.
Right.
Mr. Rogers, there's a famous episode of Mr. Rogers sitting with Mr. McFeely, the postman. And he's a black man. And this is at a time when these kinds of things just didn't happen. And he invites them in, and then they're in the backyard, and they take their shoes off, and they're in the kiddie pool or something, and they're kind of getting their feet cool together. He's just showing this moment.
Yeah. He
wasn't I'm more abrasive about it at times, for sure. I'm definitely more of a iconoclast, and I'll sometimes, and that's why this is affording me an opportunity to try and temper that. Part of it is because I get so frustrated, right? But this is providing me a way to not so much. But yeah, I guess to go right back to the question, so I don't veer off. I would say you wouldn't say it to Fred Rogers. You just wouldn't. And anytime people use the woke thing out of context, I also remind them that they're hijacking. They stole a word from a culture where it meant something. I mean, to be woke, to stay woke at the time in the civil rights movement was saying, be mindful. I was telling you about this series of paintings that I've got. I was showing this to Jeff just yesterday because they're working on a documentary with Fred Hampton Jr., right? And one of my paintings, I've just got the illustration for it right now, but it's Fred Hampton Jr. and Fred Hampton, I'm sorry. It's Fred Hampton, and we can talk about Fred a little bit, but it's Fred Hampton, and he's holding a 9mm pistol, okay, and a copy of the Green Book, and on his sleeve, it says Black Lives Matter, right? And the point that I'm trying to make with the piece, and not to beat it down, obviously I want people to get things themselves, right? But the main part of it, I guess, so not to go too deep to it, is just to look at the Green Book, right? So the Green Book, I don't know if you know about the Green Book. I don't
know.
Okay, so the Green Book was a piece of literature that was circulating in the black community especially during the civil rights era, 50s. I don't know when it started, 50s, 60s, but basically it was a traveler's guide for the United States, especially if you're like a traveling blues musician or whatever it might be. But the Green Book was a documentation of all of the sundown towns. And so a sundown town, is a place where once the sun is down, if you're black, do not be outside. You're at risk of lynching, at beating, all of these things, right? And so I say that, and there's two really important stories here. But the first part is that's being woke. Stay woke. Like, get your Green Book, because you might get lynched if you don't. So when I hear the right co-opt that word, it infuriates me, because they don't know what they're talking about, right? And a part of it is because, again, the left's branding and the way that they don't push back enough on certain things, right? Because woke, they'll say woke and use it about it like a trans issue. And it's like, that's not anywhere close to where woke came from.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, but then the left doesn't push back on it. They don't say that. They don't do what I'm doing right now. They don't bring up the Green Book. That's all you would have to do. I mean, it's the first time I've done this at that point, but it makes perfect sense. The Green Book's a great example of being woke. And the more personal example that just loops it right into who we were talking about just before we hit record. Rob Cotton.
Right.
So Rob Cotton, friend of mine, friend of yours, right? Councilman here in Valparaiso. Rob, there's a little, I think it's probably, hopefully he has it pinned on his Facebook, but I don't know if he knows how to pin stuff. So, but it's a little documentary about how Rob's family was the first black family in Valparaiso.
Right.
And at that time, Valparaiso would have been in the Green Book. Valparaiso was a sundown town. And so if you're in Valpo and you're comfortably liberal, just know, or you're on the right and you're uncomfortably, right? This town was a sundown town. The Klan was even looking at buying the university at Valpo University, right? So don't tell me I'm woke because I'm giving you a spoonful of medicine and history. That's the truth. It's the facts.
Right.
And there's the only people who don't like facts are usually the people that are making up their own story to feel comfortable and whitewashing things and what have you. So that's a great question. Thank you. That pulled so much stuff out of me. I love that.
Yeah. Thought it was provocative.
No, that's fantastic. I love it.
So, effectively, some people have redefined the meaning of woke as something that's liberal or just ridiculous, and this effectively erases the historical and legitimate racial struggles of African Americans during the Civil Rights era. Seems like something that a racist would do, delegitimize their movement, their word, and then maybe in the future claw back civil rights from Americans who rightly deserve them. So let's go ahead and move on and dig into the deeper ties that Jay has with PBS.
One of the top people I've been trying to reach this whole time, actually since 2022, I've been trying to reach this person, is Melissa McCarthy. So actress, you say, wow, that seems weird, right? Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone. Well, the reason behind that is because Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone produced the documentary on Netflix, Happy Accidents, Betrayal, and Greed. Oh. And it's about how Bob Ross basically had his brand and his name stolen from the family by his ex-business partners.
What?
It's absolutely tragic. It's beautiful and poetic. It's Shakespearean. It's something that everybody should watch if they get a chance. It tells you a lot more. It adds so much dimension to who Bob is and was and what he went through. But they were adamant that they were going to make this because they love Bob. You know, They love Steve. Steve Ross is Bob's son. They've painted. There's a little short that they painted with Steve on Netflix as well. So Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone. And it's hilarious because they're terrible and it's just so funny. But they're good because they're with Steve and it's just great. You know what I mean? But I've painted with Steve. Actually, in 2022, I got to paint with Steve. I got to meet Dana Jester, who was Bob's best friend. They got to see my Happy Little Hairdos project. So, I mean, this is, for me, I don't think we even talked about this. Happy Little Hairdos started 11 years ago. For me. So it was a parody project where I was going to say, we all know Bob because of his fro. Right. But what if he had mohawk or cornrows, or what if he was bald? And so I wanted to do this coffee table art book that kind of freed Bob from his fro and started to explore a question of identity, you know what I mean, with something as simple as a haircut. Because Bob, once he had the fro, he couldn't change his hairstyle. It became his brand, and he kind of became arrested to the expectation. Yeah. Right. So Melissa and Ben. So they did the documentary. They painted with Steve. I got to paint with Steve. That's where I was at. Dana, Bob's best friend, he's in the documentary. You'll see him talk about a lot of things. Sally Shank, who was one of Bob's good friends and the director of The Joy of Painting. So she directed every episode. I got to meet her. I told her the stuff I was doing. Like at that time, I was just about to go visit Lurie's Children's Hospital dressed as Bob. Wow. It's in 2002 or 22. So she just started, she got so emotional because she had lost a friend when she was young to cancer. So she knowing that I was going, and of course losing Bob in that battle with cancer. And so Lurie's Children's Institute in Chicago is like one of the, the biggest treatment facilities for children with cancer. So I went in dressed up as Bob to kind of just lift their spirits and have some fun. And I took in one of my bald Bobs. And I said, for them to draw whatever hairstyle they wanted, anything they could imagine, same way Bob would do. And also, of course, the correlation between them losing their own hair, in that process. So it was kind of a way to imagine and put something back in. So, I told Sally what I was doing at that time. And she just said, this was one of the most amazing moments in my life. Like, I'll never forget it. She was kind of teared up and she said, Bob would have loved this. He would have loved you. Just keep doing what you're doing. And I was like, oh my God, that was such an amazing validation. And that predates all of this. You know what I mean? So when I saw actually something else that predates all of this, 2014 is when I started the project. So I did this illustration of Bob, his froze going out of the frame. And then I wanted to use that same face, but then just keep changing the hairstyles. That was the idea. So the first drawing that I did was Bob, same face, but then I gave him long hair and a crown of thorns, and he's doing a peace sign. And so I did Bob as Jesus, right? Which, again, it's just fun. Like, and if you're too stiff with your religion, I'm sorry, but it's just like, that's when we call him Bob, the patron saint of paint. But Jesus said you can move mountains, and so did Bob. You know what I mean? It's like, it was just the good, fun gentleness of it, right? Yeah. But then the second thing that I drew, it was late 2015, because I kind of had it on the back burner. I was like, I knew it was an idea I wanted to do, but it was just like, it wasn't at the front of my mind. I was just finishing up my music career. But I was like, I saw Donald Trump running for the Republican nomination. And it was before he won the nomination even. He still already had the Make America Great Again, already had the hat, had the whole nine. And I drew on Bob a red hat that says Make America Paint Again. Wow. In 2015. So 10 years ago. So now it looks like prophecy. Or now even my brother told me, he's like, man, I hate that, because it's like, one, it's just invoking him. And two, it's just tired. It's like, it's so tired. And I'm like, I know, and you're right, but I'm an artist and I'm a visionary. Because I saw it then. And it wasn't because I'm a visionary, it's because I could see Bob and I can see Trump. And it's like, though they're so starkly contrast in their nature, in their demeanor, and who they were as people. I mean, look, this is one of my articles. We've got Donald Trump, who dodged the draft, right? And is just a bully, mean-spirited talking person. And look, you can't be on the right and a Republican, and that's fine. You can do all that, but you can't say that he's not those things, because you simultaneously celebrate that he's those things. So that's fine. You want the guy that tells you how it is and all that type of stuff, right? The tough guy. Okay, but that's not Bob, right? Bob is the opposite. He's gentle. He says, like Fred Rogers, love your neighbor. Yeah. Like Jesus would say, love your neighbor, right? Again, the contrasts are kind of funny why you decide to go on one side or the other. But so just this idea of make America paint again, I was like, we need to get back to that, to Bob's gentle spirit. So I saw that in 2015. In 2024, last year, I made yard signs with Bob's head on it, and it said, Bob Ross for president, make America paint again. You know what I mean? Wow. So it's like, and this is all before this defunding. You know what I mean? Right. And so once the line was painted in the sand, if you will, once Trump got on this as an agenda, I said, okay, well, I mean, I didn't do this. It was part of the parody for a long time for me. It was part of an examination, but it didn't have legs. It didn't have something so concrete. Right. So then I knew the first idea I got, that first whisper, I was like, I remember getting arrested on the roof of the gas station, and it just went completely viral. And this is 2008, so social media wasn't quite where it is now. But it was on, news, Chicago news, and it started going global news, all these different radio, TV interviews, Good Morning America picked it up all over the place, right? So feeling that and hearing that whisper, I was like, oh, I got to go and protest in front of Trump Tower as Bob Ross. This is what I've got to do. Yes, I've got to do this. And there was a part of me that thought, I might even get arrested doing this. Oh, well, that would be probably good for my cause if I did. I didn't get arrested, but I did go on the 4th of July this year. Independence Day obviously makes some sense there, but it was also happened to be the 30-year anniversary of Bob passing. So Bob passed on the 4th of July. I've just felt like this is a great way to kick off the Million Bob March, to go from when he passed, and then we're going to show up on Bob's birthday in DC on October 29th, and just around the United States showing up as Bob. But Jerry Davich did an amazing article for the Times on it. And it was kicking off something that's you're going to see. So the Million Bob Marches are crescendo. But today, to be able to talk to you, we have a couple of events that are going to come before that. So one is going to be in Muncie. Okay. Down at Ball State, where Bob was born, right? Not where he was born physically, but born into the PBS world. Yeah, memeified, where he became the king of memes, Bob. So we're going to do one in Muncie. We're going to go to the Bob Ross Museum, which is the studio that they shot every episode of The Joy of Painting at, right? And then we're going to do another one in Chicago. And so for people that are listening that are from around here, you have to go to happylittlehairdos.com and register, because that's where you're going to get updates. Right now, tentatively, and we're probably going to try and keep it as concrete as possible, September 30th, I want at least 100 Bobs at Trump Tower with me, because I'm going to be back at Trump Tower. But we'll go with 100 Bobs, and we're going to have press there, and we're going to be making an impact. We're going to be there. If you come as Bob, you'll be able to say I was there at that moment. I'm just telling you, we're always in historical times, but this is just really, it's a prescient issue.
Well, this is exciting. We can be part of this moment. We can join for the Muncie event or with the Chicago event and be part of these little mini protests building up to the Million Bob March. Now, what do we need to do now? We know Jay's deeper ties to this and how it started in 2015 with a completely different purpose. But it really has become more relevant. because they cut funding for PBS and a lot of other things, but they cut funding for PBS. Nationally and statewide, they've cut it in our Indiana state as well. Now, what should we do about it? Well, Jay has done something about it, and he has drafted a piece of legislation which he's about to talk about. I want to look at some of the legislation. I just want to go over some of the language of it. You know, we're trying to get free educational programming back that is actively, it must be actively fostered for kids, for anybody, but this is about children making future making future, other types of artists too.
Sure.
Accessible, inclusive programming. And this is the word or the phrase that I really liked, the democratization of imagination. I looked at that and that's a beautiful phrase.
I love that. I mean, it's one of those that just landed on me thinking about Bob specifically, because again, like we went over some of his phrases, and he said that he believes there's an artist at the bottom of every person. And when I just think he was a genius of the human spirit, and he wouldn't tell you that. Like Steve in the documentary, if you watch his son talk about his dad, he says he doesn't think that he even knew how big he was. He never thinks that. He says he doesn't think he ever got and understood what was really happening. And I don't think that even when we look at Bob as his reach in the people watching him to go to sleep or whatever it might be, that's still just a small slice. The depth of what I think he was saying, it goes along with the mystics. It goes along with the spiritualists and the Stoics and all of it. I've said consistently through my life, when I think about people being artists, I say, of course you're an artist. Life is a creative process. Your days are your canvas, and your actions are your brushstrokes on that canvas. And at the end of your days, you'll go back and you look at, and this is your masterpiece. That's your life lived, So we are creative beings. Even if you don't feel like a painter, you're an artist because you're creating your day. When you forget that, I always have this other phrase that, you've heard, the delusions of grandeur. People probably thrust that on me often enough. But I say that the only delusion is of mediocrity. That the delusion of mediocrity is that which is pushed on us so that people can manipulate us. They can control us, right? And this is where all that idea of the democratization of imagination, Bob was telling us, your imagination is the most precious, valuable thing that you have, and it's completely free to you. So he democratized it. It's not something that they can sell you in a bottle or a book.
Wow, what a good quote. The days are our canvas, the actions are our brushstrokes, and our whole life is our masterpiece. So true. Now, let's try to answer another question. What's the importance of creativity, and how did Bob Ross help cultivate creativity in others in the way that he lived?
And that's the other thing. Bob never got paid a cent from PBS. He didn't take a single dime from PBS. He did everything as Bob. He was very successful because of the branding. So to give the Kowalskis their due, right? They did help make his brand huge. I mean, Bob was a millionaire, but he didn't wear it like a millionaire. He wore it like, he was just a gentle soul, like a gentleman. But and it's just so tragic to me when you look at that arc, right? Because we hear about the starving artist cliche all the time, right? And Bob beat it as an artist. He wasn't. He's one of there are so few artists that reach that level of both fame and fortune, and Bob had both, right? He wasn't respected in gallery circles. He wasn't respected as a fine artist, unfortunately, but he was prolific and he was, a wealthy man, right? So he beat the starving artist cliche. I don't know if you know this, but Bob's fro, the reason why he got his fro was because he was trying to save money on haircuts when he was a broke artist. So he would get his springs tightened, as he calls it. It's in the documentary. And he would get his hair permed so it would last longer and it was cheaper than him getting consistent haircuts. And so his fro was it wasn't even by design, right? So the funny thing is about my hair being longer, I told you I'm going to cut it. That's the reason why I started growing my hair out initially. I was like, man, I'm in a lean time right now because I'm an artist full time. And I'm like, but times are a little lean. I'm going to just kind of skip this haircut. I wasn't doing it consciously at first, but then it started to develop. I'm like, I'm just going to grow it out. It was long in 2008 when I was riding the bike to DC and protesting. I'm just going to grow it out. And then the next thing I know, I'm like going back to DC again. So I might actually even ride a bike to DC again with a fro on my helmet. But anyway, the idea, I got to go back to the democratization of imagination. I want to say one more thing about this, try and close this. You're an artist. You're a living creative being. You have to, and that's why PBS is important. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, if we didn't have that, it's another way to stamp it out. It's another way to stamp out the voices. And that's why I think, it's a freedom of speech issue. It's a First Amendment issue. And it's a moral issue. It's not financial. $550 million a year. It costs the taxpayer about $1.60 a year. Mm-hmm. That's what that proportion of the budget would be for you as a taxpayer. I think anybody on this, hearing this right now or seeing it whenever they do, would say, take my money. $1.60 Sesame Street, sure.
Especially compared to a $2 trillion budget for military.
Oh, is it $2 trillion? I thought it was one, but even so,
it's $2 trillion.
It's two. So sorry.
So, and it, this imagination, it sort of allows someone to think of the world being a little bit different than what it currently is.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of something that is dangerous, different ideas. So the idea of defunding something like PBS, something that educates and has people thinking creatively about a way that the world could be different, I could see why an authoritarian might not like that.
Yep. You said it.
So, art is important. Go figure. It helps people think differently about the world. And it helps people grow more confident in the actions that they take in their lives. I was watching some Bob Ross in the lead up to this video for research to understand a bit more about him. Each step in the creative process of painting, he let the viewer know that they could paint whatever they want, whether that's a doodle on a toilet or a cat on a toilet or a lizard on a horse. They could do whatever they want, and their imagination is the limit. There's an important lesson there about life that is liberating. But what happens if people don't have that cultivation of creativity in their lives? What happens if people don't know that it's okay to fail and even good to fail? Well, let's look at the worst possible scenario.
Adolf Hitler was an artist.
Right.
And he wanted to go to art school. He was me.
Yeah.
That wanted to go to art school, right? But he was rejected from art school and told that his work was stale and stiff and he could never make it as an artist, right? It's not a stretch to know that rejection was part of the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Because there's a great book, it's called The Soul's Code. I read it, I was probably like 17, 18 years old. I've read it over and over again my whole life. James Hillman is the author. He was a student of Carl Jung. And The Soul's Code, he talks about the daimon is the spirit, and the acorn, that's going to birth the mighty oak. And in the acorn, the potential for the mighty oak is there from the beginning, right? So time only slows and holds back realization. So time for you to reach your greatness feels like Hitler had greatness in him, is what I'm saying.
And we all do.
We all do. But it became poisoned. And he talks about the werewolf came out of Hitler because his vision for what he thought he was going to be wasn't maturing at the space and the time. He didn't have the patience. He didn't have aspiration cultivated in him.
He wasn't nurtured.
And so not only was he not nurtured, he was rejected and told no. I'm not making excuses for the Holocaust. My great-grandfather's first generation Jew over here, right? What I'm saying is what you said was so poignant because the authoritarian that Hitler was, right, is tied to all of this.
Yeah.
The denial of imagination, of creativity. It's just like, I just imagine, I think, what if that he would have just got into art school? Would there have been a Holocaust? I just don't think there would have been. I'm 100% believe that. I just don't think it would have happened.
Right.
He would have been a different person. And that's why it's so important that we have PBS, because I would have been a different person. Without that cultivation or aspiration cultivated in me, the democratization of imagination in me, and my dad as an alcoholic, maybe I'm an alcoholic. Maybe I'm beating a wife or, driving drunk into somebody and killing them and their family. You know what I mean? We could go down 1,000 paths, but and maybe that's a little bit crazy, but we have to take some responsibility. And to your point, that doesn't sit well. Imagination and creativity and arts are always attacked. And again, Hitler was partially attacking the arts when he got into power and as he was getting into power for two reasons. One, to control it and to control the imagination and to make sure things fit the propaganda, right? And the second part, because he was still mad about being a rejected artist.
I'm sure.
It was in there. And then he was stealing art, collecting it. There's Van Goghs that have vanished. Rembrandts that have never been seen again because they were stealing. Great movie, Monuments Men, where part of U.S. military was protecting works of art. It's really George Clooney. I can't remember who else. Matt Damon. Great movie. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. But Hitler, if you look, here's the kicker, right? If I were to show you Hitler's work, if people haven't seen it, you would just be like, that looks pretty good to me.
Right.
Like, unless you're a hypercritical art critic, and even then, you know what I mean? I don't know that they're right. I look at Hitler's work that I've seen online, and I'm like, if that was your neighbor, you would be like, oh my God, you paint? Wow, that's unbelievable.
Right.
And instead, he heard, you're worthless. You'll never make it. It's not going to happen. Pack your bags. You know what I mean? And so, we have to be cognizant of motivations, like you're saying, why someone wouldn't want it. And then try to think back, like, where wasn't that aspiration cultivated in Donald Trump as a little boy? So I have an illustration that I did months ago. Oh God, it was last year sometime. And it's Donald Trump in a diaper as a baby. And he's got a big red crayon, and he's got MAGA written on the wall behind him. And I know that the image at first just is like, oh, you're just saying Donald Trump is a baby. What I'm saying is that any attention, what the piece really means, because there's actually, if you zoom out, you can see it's me drawing on, you see a shot of my hands drawing on the iPad, drawing the Donald Trump illustration. And so what I'm saying is Donald Trump needs attention, 100%. He needed it before he was a politician. He definitely needs it as a politician. All politicians need attention. Guess who else needs attention? Artists. I'm an artist. I need attention, right? And the question is what are you willing to spend, or how far are you willing to go to get that attention, right? So when I look at Donald Trump, I just say there are things that he does that I can see what's happening. He's a kid drawing on the wall with crayons.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, and I think, I don't know, this is pretty basic psychology, but like no attention or bad attention is better than no attention. So like you're a troubled child, you're a troubled youth, you'll draw on the wall, right? Before you get ignored. Because even if you get spanked or you get yelled at, spanked, that was a thing. I don't think people spank anymore, but spanked was a thing. So you get in trouble, you get yelled at least I have mom and dad's attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'll be honest, like I look for something with everyone. So like with Trump, I try to find, like, I don't want to be the art critic telling Donald Trump that he can't paint. You know what I mean? I don't want to make him a demon.
Wow. This is a view that we need right now. It calls for a radical empathy that, lends to a call to action for a better world and a cultivation of the good inside of everyone, their best potential. And, it leaves us with a question, and, that what's done is done. But what can we do going forward to basically cultivate healthier expressions of people's self going forward? What structures in society can be tweaked in order to help others cultivate themselves and what they could be? We need generally empathy for all. Why has this empathy subsided in people, and how can we properly engage with them?
On any issue, they might be super ingrained, but you might be able to pull them into like, oh man, that's cool. I didn't know that.
They see the face of Bob just smiling at them, explaining them something.
Absolutely.
It's a lot. It's a different energy as opposed to somebody who's protesting and screaming, whatever chant XYZ.
100%. Can I jump off of that?
Absolutely.
So when I was at 4th of July, right? I was packing up my stuff. I did the thing. I left, and it was cool. I got to talk to some people. It wasn't super, super huge, but it was cool. So I'm leaving. I'm walking down Michigan Avenue. My school, American Academy of Art, that I told my mom I was going to go to when I was 10 years old, a few blocks away. I'm going to walk down to my school, right? I'm here. I got to enjoy this moment. Well, I'm going to walk right past the Lions to, of course, the Art Institute. So I'm right there walking past that. But as I leave, I'm about a block away, and I'm like up from Trump Tower on Michigan, and I hear this noise down the road, and I'm like, I turn my ear. I'm like, that sounds like some commotion. I'm going to go that way. So I go towards the commotion. And as soon as I walk down the rest of the block, it would have just been precisely timed, and serendipity is my thing. I call myself a wizard of intentional serendipity. So I know it happened for a reason, but I get there, and maybe just for us to articulate this point is exactly what you just said. I get there, and there's an anti-Trump protest, a whole march of people. And it was like incredible because like I was able to just jump into the crowd. I already had my sign, my Make America Paint Again, no PBS, no Bob. I already had my sign.
Oh, that's great.
I just had a different agenda. They were this anti-ICE thing, right? And so, and I'll make this point here. They they were there and they were loud, like you said, and it was aggressive. And I get it, because I got that fire in me. I have, you know, since I was a little boy. But like, as I go there as Bob, there's some really good posts on my Instagram too that show like me walking right into that crowd of people, and it looks like they're there with me. So it's super cool, right? It's a premonition, right? This foreshadowing. But I get there and I'm hearing this noise, and then I hear the F you drum, blah, 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 you know, and I'm like, yeah, that's the contrast. And I'm saying I get it. I do understand it. Then at the end of it, there was a truck with a loudspeaker. So they're chanting and doing the whole thing. And I think we could have some chants, you know, that's fine. You know, we're still Bob's gentle spirit with a little bit of vocalization, but they're chanting. And then at the end, they're like reading something out of the Quran, doing like this, like a Muslim chant. Right. Okay. And again, I am a spiritual person.
Yeah.
The Quran is an Abrahamic religion. I think that there's grace. Cat Stevens is my favorite musician of all time. Saw him in Chicago when he came back on tour after he left for a long time. Muslim, beautiful person, beautiful Muslim will show you what that means to live that lifestyle, right? He's not crashing a plane into a building, right? But right, doing that at the end of that protest is going to push some people over the fence again. That's what I'm saying. It's going to scare some people. It's going to be foreign to them. It's no different than the guy. I live in LaPorte. There's a guy that goes on the corner by the courthouse, and he's got a megaphone, and he's talking about Jesus died for your sins, and you're a terrible sinner. What are you doing? Who are you serving with that?
Right.
You know, you're not bringing people to Christ in that manner at all. And it's not the way he would have done it in the first place. It's not the way he did it. Right. So I guess what I'm saying is I had to add that because it was a real experience that I had, the contrast of being in that moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I get it. And I'm not disparaging their religion. I think it's great. You know what I mean? But it's the time and place. It's like, what does it, mean?
It's the energy and how that psychologically affects the ability to engage with someone. Mm-hmm. And, it really changes the way that information can simply flow.
Right.
There's so much productive conversations that can happen between a Republican and a Democrat. You can show them information, they'll look at it. Mm-hmm. And I've done on the street interviews of
that's what I was going to say. I wanted to like pat you on the back and say, you do that so well. I see you doing that. You know what I mean? You're respecting things that you might not necessarily agree with, but you need to give an audience.
Right.
Yeah.
And they might not otherwise hear that information, but like you say, this pushing off as a reaction to quote unquote wokeness,
right.
It's almost like that is what the entire MAGA movement is. They've been pushed off.
Sure.
To a culture that they don't understand.
Absolutely.
That's foreign to them. Mm-hmm. And one of the dominoes happened to be PBS.
Sure.
And I think that's a domino that's worth putting back up.
Thanks. I love that. That's a good one.
Yeah. What I learned from this is that it is a matter of what energy you bring to the table. And if your attitude or energy is not necessarily happy, but at least open and nice to the person that you're explaining your perspective to, it's more likely that that person is going to be open to you. And that's important, because that's all this is. All this is an exchange of information. And if we are being angry and shouting, we are creating barriers that make it impossible for us to talk. And essentially that's what this is. we have to talk. We have to get out of our comfort zone. And instead of calling them our enemies, we have to call them our friends. And have empathy for them, even though they think differently than us. It's never anybody's fault what ideas they have in their head. But you can talk to them, and maybe you'll learn something, and maybe they'll learn something. But it won't happen if you're shouting at each other. It'll only happen if you approach them nicely. Now, some people can get caught in echo chambers, and no doubt we've all been there. And Jay goes into this with a good example of Joe Rogan.
And to your point about that, like, that's one of the things that I said even about Rogan for a long time, right? Joe Rogan. I would tell, people who are like really like, oh, he's an idiot. He's just done da da da. It's like, yes, but you're pushing him to where he wound up. Mm-hmm. And I just saw it happening in real time. Like, Joe Rogan does that thing where you're like, oh, I just don't know. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, but you have to be responsible because you have a huge audience. So just saying I don't know does not absolve you. The Tipping Point author, why am I forgetting it? Malcolm Gladwell has a great podcast about this Rogan experience, right? And how like people aren't holding him accountable. Even some of his guests need to be like, no, Joe, like we got to stop and really say what's happening here. So, but he became MAGA. Like, I can remember distinctly the interviews where he said, I would never have Donald Trump on my podcast. I don't want to give him audience. I don't think that Joe was being disingenuous then. And I don't think he was being disingenuous when he had him on. I think that he got pushed and pushed as death by 1,000 paper cuts. I feel like notwithstanding, it's like these echo chambers that we all live in. We all have to have, all of our friends have to be Republicans, or all of our friends have to be Democrats. I mean, what is that even? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I have Republican friends that I argue about with this stuff, and we spar. It's fun. It's fine. Yeah. Whatever. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like Rogan, like the notion that Kamala Harris did not go on Joe Rogan is insane to me. I believe if she would have went on his podcast, she would have been able to shoot down so many of the false narratives. Yeah. And she would have been fine. And Joe was not going to come at her like that. He just wouldn't have. I mean, like some of the stuff I was talking to you about, the defunding the police. Those were episodes that I heard of people talking about some of that stuff on Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do I think that going into the 2025 election, he was being impartial and balanced? And no, I don't think so at all. Do I think Elon Musk was? No. Look at Elon Musk. Let me ask you this. If you want to know about the media and we want to understand what's going on, these crazy propaganda theories or whatever it might be, when was the last time you even heard about Elon Musk?
Since he got kicked out of Doge.
Right. Since Elon Musk. So think about that. Elon Musk comes against Donald Trump, starts blasting him.
Right.
Starts talking about a third party. Mm-hmm. I'll make the case that his biggest mistake in getting coverage for himself was talking about a third party. Because even though it would have been a Republican shaved movement, you know what I mean? It would, like, you talk about Ralph Nader. You talk about, trying to think of somebody else. Well, let's stick with Ralph Nader. He's, demonized by the left for stealing votes. He's stealing votes from the Democrat. Mm-hmm. Elon would have been that, or his candidate and his party would have been that from the Republican side of the issue, because there aren't going to be any Democrats voting for whatever party that would manifest there. Right. It's basically I don't disagree with them that we need 3 parties. We probably need 4. We need 2 on left, 2 on right, something that can swing around, but we're not close to it. And evident in the fact that we've not even heard Elon Musk mentioned. He was on every 24-hour news cycle every day ad nauseum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't heard about Elon Musk in months.
No.
So,
well, as you can see, there are consequences for not sharing your perspective with those who are different. That's where it counts. You may face anger, you might face hatred, you might even face violence, but the consequence of not sharing your voice, sharing your story and your perspective, in a democracy, you won't be represented. So, make your voice be heard. And with that, we close out the interview. Well, we've covered a lot.
we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And may Bob be with you.
May Bob be with us all. Absolutely. Yeah. If anybody, again, listens to this point, watches the Million Bob March, you just go to happylittlehairdos.com. It would be really great. I implore you to please, even if you're not going to DC, just to get updates, ideas, how you can share. Because again, a share on a post is huge. I mean, like, I intend for this to go viral. And so it's like any one of these little posts, this podcast, that podcast, this picture of me with Frank Mervan and a picture at Bernie's, wherever it is, all these different things. All we need is one. There's enough kindling here.
Right.
We're looking for that one match. And so everybody that gets on and shares and likes and comments and laughs and experiences the joy of protesting is another shot at this reaching critical mass.
Let's do it. Let's reach critical mass.
Thanks, brother.
You're welcome. So I got some jokes here to read off. Why are a million Bobs marching? Because even happy little trees deserve representation. How about this one? Million Bob March isn't loud. It's just a peaceful little protest. Okay, one more. What's the official snack of the Million Bob March? Happy little chips. I don't know about that one. Why don't Bobs carry signs? Because their message is already clearly painted. Okay, here's some more. A million Bobs walk into Washington, D.C. The Capitol Dome suddenly has a happy little cloud. Why do authoritarians hate the Million Bob March? Too much free expression and not enough controlled brushstrokes. Okay, here's another one. What did the paintbrush say to the protester? Let's stroke back against injustice. Okay, that was good. Day of Bobservance fun. What's the dress code for the day of Bobservance? Formal afros only. Actually, you can wear, anything PBS, could be Big Bird, whatever. Why do marchers never get lost? Because there are always happy little paths. A lot of happy little things. What do you call a million Bobs singing together? A chorus of clouds. Anyways, hope you liked those jokes. Hope you liked the episode, most importantly. And have a good one. See you next time. Thanks for joining me on Unscripted with Daniel. And if you're watching on WVOP, be sure to tell a friend about this great broadcast. And if you're listening on YouTube, then subscribe and like this video. Thanks so much. See you next time.